The following program is a color feature presentation on the HSN television network. This Week in Pro Football is brought to you by Hager Slacks. They just fit better naturally. And by American Motors and your local American Motors dealer. Hi, I'm Tom Brookshire.
And I'm Pat Summerall. This week in the first half of our show, we'll see two quarterbacks break out of depressing slumps as they lead their teams to victory. We'll also see two ties, which for a couple of teams must have seemed like wins.
And Pat, we'll see two very big upsets as we watch the Jets demolish the Rams and the Bengals dismember the Cleveland Browns.
We'll see all of those games and more right after this message. In Miami, there were rumblings of mutiny over Don Shula's refusal to replace Bob Greasy at quarterback. But Lloyd Mumford muffled the mumbling for a while as he raced 32 yards with St. quarterback Billy Kilmer's first pass and a 7-0 Miami lead. On Kilmer's second pass, he was more fortunate as he hooked up with one of his own teammates, Al Dodd, who recovered his own fumble as the breaks evened out. The play set up a tying touchdown on Tom Barrington's 11-yard bolt. The Saints got another break on the following kickoff as Mercury Morris committed the first of 4 Miami fumbles. This one right into Dodd's fumble magnet hands. But when wide-open Ray Pogue caught a case of dropsy, the Saints settled for a field goal and a 10-7 lead. Greasy then set out to silence his critics. Three times he would drive the Dolphins into scoring range, and 3 times fumbles would halt the drives. A 4th time, a fence would be the stopper. A circus catch by Willie Richardson was wiped out when he was ruled out of the end zone. In the second half, Greasy's generalship began to pay off. A 42-yard strike to Paul Warfield set up a 1-yard plunge by Jimmy Kick. Then Kick played hide-and-seek with number 77, Doug Cruzan, before streaking 56 yards. The run set up a 6-yard rumble by Larry Zonka for Miami's final points, as Bob Greasy came back to lead the Dolphins to a 21-10 victory.
In Green Bay, where the Packers and Bears met in a game to escape the NFC Central Division cellar, another quarterback was about to prove himself anew. Although not expected to start, Bart Starr led the Pack into battle once again. Bart was the star of old in the first half, and he coolly drove the Packers to the only first-half touchdown, a 14-yard dash by Donnie Anderson. Chicago's brightest star is Dick Gordon, who had caught 6 touchdown passes this season. In the second half of this game, he made it 7 on a 69-yard bomb from Jack Concannon to tie the score at 10-10. The same pair teamed again to set up one of 4 Mac Percival field goals as the Bears led for the first time. Then the defense showed they had no respect for age and set out to ruin a veteran passer's Sunday afternoon. But with 1:20 to go and trailing 19-13, Starr's day brightened again. He led the Packers on an 8-play drive, completing 5 of the 23 passes he completed in the game. Starr called his own number with 7 seconds left and strolled around right in for the final 3 yards as Green Bay topped the Bears 20-19, and Bart Starr proved again that he can be one of the game's best quarterbacks.
Well, Pat, we're in an era where they do almost an IBM card system to get the scouting report out to the players. But Norm Van Brocklin, the Atlanta Falcon coach, told me something was rather interesting when he said that when they played, let's say, the Los Angeles Rams, they try to involve every good all-pro defensive player the Rams have early in that game. They'll challenge Deacon Jones and try to run at him. They might try to tie up Maxie Bond with a screen pass to intimidate him somewhat, just to show the Rams and, of course, the other team that they don't feel like anybody's sacred, and by golly, they can work on anybody, including the best.
And sometimes when you beat the best of a defensive team or an offensive team, it affects the character of the rest of them. They lose confidence too, don't they?
Yeah, I think so. And we might look back to the Super Bowl and maybe Kansas City trying to handle and doing a good job on Carl Eller might have set the tempo for the great Chief victory in the Super Bowl.
I'm sure it did.
Pat, what's next?
Well, Tom, last week, birds of a feather really flocked together as the Falcons and the Eagles fought to a tie. And I'm sure that somebody was thankful to get out of the Buffalo-Baltimore game with a tie rather than a loss. So let's look at those games right now.
In preparation for John Unitas and the Baltimore Colts, the Buffalo Bills defense played monkey in the middle. Oddly enough, this strategy carried over to the game itself as the Bills had the once-beaten Colts going backwards. Led by rookie quarterback Dennis Shaw and the bullish thrusts of mammoth Wayne Patrick, Buffalo's offense dominated the Colt defense, one of the stingiest in all of football. Shaw, a prominent contender for Rookie of the Year, threw 2 touchdown passes. One going to flashy Haven Moses, the other to tiny Marlon Briscoe, the AFC's leading receiver. The 2 scores gave Buffalo a surprising 14-0 lead, and even the scoreboard blinked in disbelief. Although Colt receivers cleared their defenders easily, the field at times was just 1 yard too short. Finally, the old master managed to score. He used both his tight ends, Tom Mitchell, number 84, and John Mackey, number 88, to split the Bills' deep defense for a touchdown. Baltimore tied the game at 14-all when Eddie Hinton outflanked the Bills on a reverse. The Colts later added a Jim O'Brien field goal and led 17-14 late in the final quarter. With just minutes remaining, Shaw drove Buffalo to the Colts' 28-yard line. From there, Grant Guthrie kicked a 36-yard field goal to tie the game at 17-17 with just 1 minute to play. John Unitas' attempt to rally Baltimore was blunted by an interception by Pete Richardson, who ended up at the Bills' 49-yard line. With just 2 seconds left, Grant Guthrie lined up his sights on a haunted house and attempted a 58-yard field goal that would enshrine his foot in the Tom Dempsey Hall of Fame. However, Guthrie's try was woefully short, and Jim Duncan almost sneaked through a crease for a touchdown. Though more than 2 touchdown underdogs, the Bills came out of Baltimore with a tie and a moral victory.
Norm Van Brocklin's Atlanta Falcons came to Philadelphia boasting a tough-minded general in quarterback Bob Berry, a budding All-Pro and tight end Jim Mitchell, number 86, and a young swarming defense led by middle linebacker Tommy Nobis, number 60, and defensive end Claude Humphrey, number 87, a relentless hunter of passers. The Eagles defense, inspired by their Age of Aquarius middle linebacker Tim Rosevich, is also young, tough, and aggressive. On Sunday, each snap of the ball marked the beginning of one more bruise on Bob Berry's body. Whether he rolled out or remained in the pocket, Berry was battered and beaten. On this one gray, dismal day at Franklin Field, Bob Berry absorbed a season's worth of punishment. While the Eagles' rush line proved invulnerable, Berry found the Philadelphia secondary more to his liking and at times plucked it clean. The Falcons gained an early lead when safety Steve Priest deflected a Berry pass right into Jim Mitchell's waiting hands. Atlanta built a 13-6 advantage, which lasted to the middle of the last quarter when their offense became too greedy. Eagles defensive tackle Gary Pettigrew blindsided Harmon Wage's halfback pass. Steve Priest recovered the fumble and sprinted 21 yards to tie the game at 13. Quarterback Norm Snead carefully consumed 3 minutes and 35 seconds in a furious last-second drive for the tiebreaker. With it fourth down, only 10 seconds remaining, and the ball squarely in the middle of the field at the Falcon 20-yard line, rookie place kicker Mark Mosley missed, and the game ended deadlocked at 13. We'll have more exciting action in This Week in Pro Football right after this brief message.
Last week, there were two resounding upsets. Both were by former AFL teams over former NFL powers, and both engineered by young quarterbacks who saw little or no action all of last season.
More than 76,000 fans filed into the Los Angeles Coliseum to see the New York Jets and number 18, young Al Woodall, take on the Rams and a better-known number 18, Roman Gabriel. The Rams needed a victory to stay within one game of San Francisco, and Gabriel got them going in the right direction with a touchdown to number 84, wide receiver Jack Snow. There were other flashes of the old Ram brilliance, such as this pass to running back Les Josephson, number 34. But for the most part, it was a day of frustration for the Rams. Two potential touchdowns to number 33, Willie Ellison, were ruled out of bounds. On another occasion, Ellison fumbled at the Jets' 1-yard line. 3 times, Gabriel was intercepted, once in the end zone and twice by number 62, middle linebacker Al Atkinson. Gabriel's second touchdown pass was anticlimactic. It came with less than a minute and a half left, and the Rams trailing by 18 points. Gabriel scrambled and finally found number 20, Tommy Mason. The other number 18, Al Woodall, spent the early part of the game gathering grass stains under the powerful Ram pass rush. But he survived 4 premature burials and came back throwing. And his receivers looked like Joe Namath's receivers of 2 years ago. Number 83 looked like the George Sauer of old. Number 13 looked like the Don Maynard of old and the all-time pro yardage leader. In all, Woodall's best day included 10 completions for 261 yards and 3 touchdowns, one on George Sauer's patented post pattern. Another came on a post pattern which freed number 88, rookie wide receiver Richard Castor. Woodall's other scoring pass was an inside screen to number 34, Lee White, a second-year running back from Weber State College. It wasn't the Super Bowl, but it was a great way to break a 6-game losing streak. Jets 31, Rams 20.
In Cincinnati, another of pro football's great new rivalries was preparing to step into its second stage of development. At quarterback for the Bengals was number 11, young Virgil Carter, a former Chicago Bear whose career has been almost as topsy-turvy as some of the things which have happened to the Bengals lately. In his first pro start, number 15 rookie Mike Phipps led the Browns to a touchdown the first time they had the ball. Number 89, Milt Morin's catch set up a touchdown sweep by number 44, Leroy Kelly. And the Browns seemed on their way to breaking their rare 2-game losing streak. The second time the Browns had the ball, Phipps found himself faced with a 3rd and 22 situation from his own 7. But he again located Milt Morin, and everything seemed possible for Cleveland. Morin's great play was Cleveland's last. The rest of the game turned into the Virgil Carter show, as Carter gained over 100 yards in both passing and running, 73 of them on this well-escorted dash. Carter's fumble was not crucial, mainly because he did too many other things well, such as this rollout strike to number 30, Jess Phillips, at the goal line. Carter set up the winning touchdown with another nervy running play, carrying the ball himself to within inches of the Cleveland goal. From there, number 18, Paul Robinson, did the honors. Not only had the Bengals avenged their earlier loss to Cleveland, but in doing so, they had thrilled a record 60,000 plus who jammed Riverfront Stadium. Now only one game behind first place Cleveland and Pittsburgh, the suddenly toothsome Bengals and Virgil Carter at last had something truly worth smiling about.
We'll be right back to This Week in Pro Football following station identification. This is the HSN Television Network. In the second half of our show, we'll see how John Brody and Lynn Dawson led their teams to solid victories.
And we'll see the New York Giants and the Vikings as they put together a couple of exciting come-from-behind victories to keep those winning streaks intact.
And we'll see two of the top guns in the AFC West as they win to keep that race very tight. And I'll bet you never guessed who pulled it out for the Raiders again.
I can't wait to see. Pat, our feature this week is called the Blue Ridge Mountain Rack-Up, and I think I'll just let it go at that because I think when you see it, you'll understand the title.
And we'll see that feature, and we'll have more exciting action on This Week in Pro Football right after this brief message.
Lynn Dawson returned to Pittsburgh, the city that scorned him 10 years ago, and he brought with him the reoccurring nightmare of the championship quarterback that got away. Meanwhile, the fans in San Francisco are very much at home with million-dollar quarterback John Brody.
In the Astrodome, the Houston Oilers, with nothing to lose, entertain the San Francisco 49ers with everything to win. And for a while, it appeared that Houston could be a spoiler. Leroy Mitchell interrupted this Brody to Ken Willard aerial effort, and shortly thereafter, Roy Hopkins plugged it in for 6. Houston safety Ken Houston brought down the high and mighty once again with this interception. With a little razzle-your-dazzle help from his friends and a little help from the 49ers, Charlie Johnson brought the Oilers close. And Roy Hopkins wheeled in for 6 more points. But the game turned in the 49ers' favor when number 27, Al Randolph, spiked Jones' punt, and the ball rolled out of the end zone for a safety. John Brody got together with Jimmy Thomas for San Francisco's first touchdown. For his next act, the veteran Brody went prospecting with Dick Witcher, striking pay dirt once again, and Houston's secondary began to falter under the whip arm of the hottest quarterback in pro football. Brody's third touchdown pass of the day went to Gene Washington. And when Ken Willard powered in from the 3, the game was safely salted away. San Francisco, leaders in the NFC West, 30, Houston, 20.
The Pittsburgh Steelers hosted the Kansas City Chiefs in new Three Rivers Stadium, and Ed Podolak politely presented the Steelers a housewarming gift.
But like Indian givers, the Chiefs took it right back as Willie Mitchell stripped Preston Pearson of the ball and Bobby Bell recovered for Kansas City. Starting quarterback Terry Hanratty was fleeced by Jimmy the Gem Marcellus. And for a time, these two tough Stone Age squads traded favors in kind until it seemed that neither was willing to take advantage of the other. Defense has been the reason for Pittsburgh's strong showing in 1970, and number 44 Lee Callan is one of the ringleaders of that unit they call Track Down Incorporated. But after a stuttering start, Kansas City got rolling in the tracks of robust Robert Tank Holmes. And Lynn Dawson, one of the more famous cast-off Steeler quarterbacks, gave Pittsburgh the air, hooking up on 19 of 24 passes for 257 yards and 3 touchdowns. This one, the first of 2, to his dentist, Billy Cannon. And when Dream quarterback Terry Bradshaw came on to put some oomph in the Steeler offense, he suffered another rude awakening to the pro game, this time at the hands of Johnny Robinson. It's likely that in their 2 Terrys, Pittsburgh holds at least one of the great quarterbacks for the future. But for now, it was Lynn Dawson's day, returning to the city where he began his pro career a decade ago. The Chiefs and Lenny Dawson stopped the Steelers 31-14.
Tom, you know, John Brody for a long, long time has been considered one of the fine, pure passers to play pro football. He's having, I guess, what you could call his greatest year. He, of course, gives a lot of credit to his receivers, who are obviously outstanding because of the statistics he's put together so far. But I was talking to John last week, and he gives as much credit to his defense as he does to the fact that he's throwing the ball so well, and to his receivers. He says because the defense has been able to keep the 49ers close to the other team all the time, that he's more able to stay close to a preconceived game plan, which you hear so much about, and he's not forced to throw the ball. He doesn't have to go back and throw it just time after time in order to hope to get back in the game. So it's strange, I think, that defense sometimes dictates that an offensive quarterback might have a good year.
Yeah, it's nice to see a quarterback appreciate a defense, too.
It sure is. What's next, Tom?
Well, Pat, last week, Minnesota all but wrapped up their division with a great come-from-behind victory, and the New York Giants also came from behind in a game that must have been put together by a Hollywood script writer. Let's take a look at those two games right now.
Last week in Yankee Stadium, the New York Giants stormed out to meet the Washington Redskins. In recent weeks, the Giants have been formidable, due mainly to a rejuvenated running attack led by Ron Johnson. But last week, an all but forgotten player named Tucker Fredrickson, number 24, played the greatest game of his career. He caught 10 passes for 165 yards and careened and battered his way through the Redskins as though he were wearing armor plate instead of leather pad. His first score put the Giants ahead, and then number 30, Ron Johnson, decided it was about time he got some attention too. Luckily, number 18, Clifton McNeil, was one of those paying attention to Ron, and the Giants increased their total to 14. But the Redskins weren't far behind as Kurt Knight kicked 4 field goals to make it 14-12 at the half, a close game. But in the third quarter, the Redskins exploded. Number 31, Charlie Haraway, raced 57 yards the first time the Redskins touched the ball. Sonny Jurgensen flew one to Charlie Taylor, number 42, and the Redskins were disappearing in the distance. Then it was Charlie Haraway again, and at the end of the third period, Washington led 33-14. But in the fourth quarter, Ron Johnson became the man of the minute as he ripped off yardage in greedy hunks. Yards turned to points. But what New York fan dared to hope that the Giants could pull it out? Every minute had its hero, and the man of the next minute was Tucker Fredrickson, whose 57-yard excursion gave the Giants new life. With time vanishing, the defense stopped the Redskins cold. But the Giants' offense was sputtering. The great comeback was falling short. On a last-ditch 4th and 6 situation, Tarkenton hit Johnson for the first down. New York had new life, and the last minute belonged to Ron Johnson, who skirted in and swooped into the end zone like a victorious war eagle. For New York, it was their 6th straight win, and although they trailed the Cardinals by 1 full game, they may soon be taking that giant step to the top.
For Coach Joe Schmidt and his Lions, last Sunday's game against the Vikings was all important, for if they won, they'd be right back in the race. But if they lost, well, they gave it everything they had. The defense played superbly. They gave 100%. The special teams, led by number 45, Bobby Williams, contributed an 85-yard touchdown run. They gave 100%. The offense wanted to win so badly they were willing to knock down fences. Sometimes they didn't get up and walk away. And sometimes, despite ferocious punishment, they did get up, but very, very slowly. The offense gave 100%. Eventually, the Lions' inspired defense caused a Gary Quazzo fumble. They took advantage of the break on a Greg Landry to Mel Farr connection. Detroit led, and their fans loved it. Viking fans chanted to Thor, and he must have heard because thunder boomed and the Purple Horde roared to life. Gary Quazzo to number 80 John Henderson set up a short Clint Jones touchdown. The Viking defense plied its specialty and blocked a punt. Gary Quazzo lofted a sky bolt to number 21 Jim Lindsay. But the Vikings still trailed, and time was fast waning. Then, for the third time in the game, Clint Jones, number 26, took the ball in, and the Vikings had pulled it out. For them, it meant 6 wins in a row and an almost unbeatable lead in the NFC Central Division. For the Lions, it meant that hope was almost at an end, and it proved that to beat the powerful Purple Pillagers, you've got to give more than 100%. And how do you do that?
Pro football's tightest division, the AFC West, continued to tie itself in knots. Oakland once again turned to its ancient ace in the hole for victory, while San Diego barely held on to a slippery win over the Patriots.
The San Diego Chargers traveled 3,000 miles for the privilege of spending a few hours out in a roaring Boston nor'easter. The Chargers had only to face the storm. New Patriot coach John Mazur had to figure his way out of 6 straight losses. Once again, Joe Kapp was in search of the magic of Minnesota past. Jim Nance topped an early drive with Boston's third touchdown in 7 games and the first Patriot lead since the second week of the season. But the winter of Joe Kapp's discontent is not yet over. A combination of Charger defensive might and Harvard Stadium mire clogged the Boston attack until even the patented Joe Kapp mud shuffle ended in disaster. The Patriots were pushed and pursued back past their own goal line. And with his back to the wall, Kapp finally ran out of places to turn. The Charger defense collected a 2-point safety, which was exactly 2 points more than the San Diego offense could muster in the entire first half. Each team struggled with the other. Both battled the field, and confusion reigned supreme. But San Diego has a performer who can lend grace to any situation. Even in slop number 19, Lance Allworth can weave his magic and come up with a miracle. Across the field from Allworth is another magician, number 27, Gary Garrison. Garrison's sleight of hand artistry astounded the Patriots secondary as he and Allworth accounted for over 2/3 of San Diego's total yardage. They personally escorted the mired Charger attack through the murky haze and into the end zone, as each scored to give San Diego a 16-7 fourth quarter lead. No one has ever called Injun Joe a quitter, and once again he went down firing. But Bake Turner's last-minute touchdown reception was too late, as San Diego held on and remained alive, if not completely well, for next week's Western Division survival struggle in Oakland.
In Denver, the Broncos' survival test had already arrived. Lou Saban had to find a way to halt a 3-game losing skid while stopping Oakland's pair extraordinaire. Number 3, Darryl LaMonica, was leading the AFC in passing. He had an ancient compatriot who was handy to have around if a game-winning field goal or a last-second relief touchdown pass was needed. Number 16, George Blanda. Blanda is handy and LaMonica is consistent. As always, he came out firing. As always, number 81, Warren Wells, was there when the bomb descended. As always, Oakland was on top early. LaMonica went the power route for a second Raiders score. He screamed to Hurett Dixon, who rumbled in behind Jim Otto and Jim Harvey. Lou Saban could feel another uncomfortable Denver winter coming on as Oakland moved to a commanding 17-6 fourth quarter lead. Commanding, that is, until a pent-up Denver defense began finding LaMonica. Suddenly, with less than a quarter remaining, Denver began to control the action as number 14, Pete Lisk, came off a bootleg to spear number 83, Jim Whalen. The pendulum of play had swung towards Denver, and a worried John Madden watched the Broncos take the ball away from his Raiders and roar upfield again. Lisk took his team to the 1 and then went over the top for another score. The momentum-fired Broncos had forged a sudden 19-17 lead with only 4 minutes left to victory. Denver's long-suffering fans sensed sweet revenge. Oakland's old man sensed a challenge. In 21 years, George Blanda has learned it all, including how to pass while falling over his own blocker. "21 years has also taught Blanda to stand tall under pressure, like the pressure of a winning touchdown pass. Blanda and Fred Biletnikoff made it look easy. 1 minute and 30 seconds. 6 passes and 4 completions. 1 touchdown and a 24-19 victory. All in a day's work for Oakland's old miracle man. While the Raiders remained in first place, the Broncos suffered from a record of 4-1 to one of 4-5, from first place in their division to last. The young Broncos had found that there are many lessons to learn on the road to a championship.
Well, Pat, I took St. Louis over Dallas. How about the St. Louis Cardinals and the Kansas City Chiefs?
Well, the Cardinals seem to be playing great defense. They've got all the offensive ingredients of a champion, so I'll pick St. Louis.
I'll go with the defending Super Chiefs from Kansas City.
Okay.
At any rate, we'll be back next week to show you what happens, and I'm Tom Brookshire.
And I'm Pat Summerall. We'll see you next week.
This Week in Pro Football has been brought to you by American Motors and your local American Motors dealer. By Hager Slacks. They just fit better naturally. Promotional consideration is provided by American Motors, makers of the bold new 1971 Javelin, with styling so hairy we even risk turning some people off. Javelin by American Motors. Sports fans, it's on sale now. The Sporting Guide with the most complete sports programming coverage in town. Got it? Get it. This has been a color feature presentation in cooperation with NFL Films through the facilities of Hughes Sports Network.